Why travel gets harder after 55, and what the industry never adjusted for. Travel doesn't flip a switch the day you turn 55. There's no agent at the curb who hands you a pamphlet that says, "Congratulations, you now experience airports differently." It's subtler than that. It shows up as a new kind of fatigue, a longer recovery time, a little more stiffness after sitting, a little less patience for chaos that used to feel merely annoying. And because it's gradual, a lot of people blame themselves. They assume they're getting worse at travel, that they're out of practice, that they're just becoming cranky. But what's really happening is simpler and more unfair. The travel industry has been optimizing for speed, density, and self-service for decades, and it never truly adjusted for the reality that travelers age. After 55, you're still the same person. You're just running the same system on different settings, while the system keeps acting like everyone is on high-performance mode all the time. Welcome to Passport Pointers, where we turn travel frustration into clarity by explaining the systems behind it. Today we're breaking down why travel gets harder after 55 and what the industry never adjusted for, so you can plan around the real friction instead of feeling blindsided by it. What changed wasn't you. It was the margin. The biggest industry shift that older travelers feel isn't one single policy. It's the disappearance of margin. Margin is the cushion that makes travel humane. Extra time between steps, extra space in the cabin, extra options when something goes wrong, extra access to a person who can fix a problem. Over the last few decades, airlines and airports have trimmed that cushion because margin costs money. It's extra staffing, extra time, extra space, extra slack that isn't directly profitable. For a 25-year-old with a carry-on and a phone in their hand, less margin is stressful but survivable. For someone over 55, less margin turns normal travel into a high-effort task because your body and your brain often need a little more recovery time between steps. Not because you're fragile, because you're human. And when a system removes margin, every small disruption becomes a bigger deal. Time compression became the default. Air's travel now operates as if time itself has been compressed, squeezed into tighter windows where everything is expected to happen faster, smoother, and without pause. Flights turn quicker, connections shrink, boarding accelerates, and delays are somehow supposed to resolve themselves without affecting the rest of the day. For passengers over 55, this constant compression isn't efficient. It's draining. Time compression shows up in small ways first. Boarding announcements overlap. Gate changes happen late. You're expected to absorb new information instantly and act on it immediately, often while standing, carrying bags, and scanning crowds. There's no buffer built in for processing, resting, or simply catching up. The system assumes readiness at all times. What used to be natural recovery moments have vanished. There's no extra space between events, no allowance for stiffness after sitting, no acknowledgement that bodies need transitions. You go from seated, to standing, to walking, to lifting in rapid succession, as if the previous hour didn't happen. When time is compressed, recovery becomes optional, and optional quickly turns into non-existent. The irony is that when something does go wrong, everything slows down dramatically. Miss a connection and you're suddenly waiting for hours, get delayed, and time stretches endlessly. So passengers are rushed when things are working and stranded when they aren't. There's no middle ground where pacing actually makes sense. Time compression benefits schedules, not people. It assumes energy is unlimited and readiness is automatic. Aging bodies feel that mismatch immediately, not because they can't keep up, but because the system no longer leaves room to reset. Travel didn't get faster, it just stopped giving you time to feel human between steps. The environment got more self-service, not more supportive. There's a reason travel can feel harder even when there are more screens, more apps, more kiosks, and more tools. The industry used technology to replace people, not to reduce complexity. Airlines now push passengers toward app-first communication for gate changes, boarding updates, and rebooking. That's fine when everything goes right. The problem is that when things go wrong, self-service becomes self-rescue. If you're 55 plus, you may be perfectly capable with a smartphone. But the system assumes more than capability. It assumes constant monitoring, fast reaction, and comfort troubleshooting under stress. That's not about age in a stereotypical way. It's about how much cognitive load you want to carry when you're tired, hungry, or rushing. And because staffing has been reduced in many places, the human fallback is often slower and harder to access than it used to be. So the industry didn't adjust for older travelers by making the system easier. It adjusted by making travelers responsible for more. What changed for you first? Physical comfort, recovery time, airport pace, or the shift to AP first everything? Drop it in the comments. We read every one, and your answers help shape what we break down next. The physical world got tighter. Even if you've never measured a seat, you can feel the trend. The physical environment is less forgiving. Cabins are denser. Seats are slimmer. Legroom is tighter on many aircraft. For older bodies, less forgiving hits differently. A firm seat doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it can aggravate hips, backs, and joints. Limited legroom isn't just annoying. It can affect circulation and stiffness. A narrow aisle isn't just inconvenient, it can make balance and moving around other passengers feel riskier. And here's the key part. Airlines largely treated comfort as an upsell problem, not a design problem. If the standard product is physically harder to tolerate as you age, the adjustment the industry offers is usually a price tag. The industry never rebuilt rest into the journey. Somewhere along the way, the travel industry quietly removed rest from the journey and replaced it with movement, waiting, and expectation. Airports used to be places where pauses happen naturally. Now rest feels accidental, like something you're lucky to stumble across if the gate isn't crowded and the seats aren't already claimed. For passengers over 55, this change is impossible to miss. There are fewer places to sit between steps, fewer moments designed for recovery, and far more transitions that assume your body is always ready for the next demand. You sit for a flight, then immediately stand. You stand, then walk. You walk, then lift. You lift, then stand again. At no point does the system suggest you might need a reset. What makes this especially frustrating is that rest hasn't been eliminated because it's unnecessary. It's been removed because it doesn't generate revenue or speed. Benches don't move people. Pauses don't increase throughput. Recovery doesn't show up on operational dashboards. So it was quietly engineered out, replaced with standing zones, walking corridors, and tightly packed seating that discourages lingering. The irony is that when rest disappears, fatigue takes over, and fatigue slows everything down. People move more cautiously, tempers shorten, mistakes happen. The journey feels harder than it needs to be, not because travel itself is demanding, but because recovery was never rebuilt to match aging bodies. The industry didn't forget about rest. It decided it wasn't essential. Passengers are left to compensate on their own, adjusting expectations in a system that no longer plans for the simple fact that bodies need pauses to function well. The cost of errors went up. Another reason travel feels harder after 55 is that the cost of a mistake is higher, physically and emotionally. When you're younger, you can recover from a wrong turn, a gate change, a missed sign. You can walk faster to make up time. You can skip a meal and keep moving. You can sleep badly and still function. After 55, you can still do all those things, but the recovery cost is bigger. If you miss a connection, it's not just an inconvenience. It can mean hours of standing, rebooking stress, and a late-night arrival that throws off your whole next day. The industry never adjusted for that higher error cost. It still runs on the assumption that passengers can absorb disruptions with minimal fallout. Security never adjusted for stress, either. Airport security was never redesigned for stress, even though stress is now the default state of the line. The process assumes calm hands, perfect memory, and instant compliance, all while alarms chirp, bins slide, and instructions change mid-sentence. If you're over 55, your body feels stress before your brain finishes translating it. Stress tightens muscles and shortens patience. Standing still makes it worse. You're asked to balance, bend, and undress accessories on command, then reassemble yourself at speed while strangers close in from every direction. None of that encourages steadiness. It encourages hurry, which is exactly when things get dropped, forgotten, or flagged. The design also treats confusion as a personal flaw. Signs are plentiful but inconsistent. Verbal directions compete with noise. Agents rotate positions, each with a slightly different preference. The expectation is that you'll adapt instantly, even if your heart rate is already elevated and your joints are protesting the floor. After the scanner, there's no decompression lane. You're expected to step forward, collect belongings, put shoes back on, and move out of the way immediately. Sitting for 30 seconds to let your balance return feels like breaking an unwritten rule. So you rush, because the line behind you is watching. Security didn't fail to account for stress by accident. It prioritized throughput and assumed resilience would fill the gap. For aging travelers, that assumption turns routine screening into a pressure cooker. The process works on paper. In practice, it asks calm from people it's actively denying it to. Help exists, but it's often built for disability, not aging. This is a critical nuance. There are real protections and accommodations for passengers with disabilities, and those protections matter. But it's not the whole story for most travelers over 55, because many people aren't traveling with a disability in the formal sense. They're traveling with normal aging changes, slower pacing, more stiffness, less tolerance for prolonged standing, and higher fatigue. So the support system can feel like it's built for someone else. You either feel like you don't qualify, or you feel awkward requesting help you genuinely would benefit from. And because the industry didn't build a comfortable middle ground, many older travelers end up white-knuckling it through the journey, quietly pushing themselves to match a pace that doesn't match them. The journey became louder, brighter, and more cognitively expensive. The modern air travel journey didn't just get longer or tighter, it got louder, brighter, and far more demanding on the brain. Airports now feel like casinos that forgot to offer chairs. Screens flash constantly, announcements overlap, music leaks from shops, and lighting stays permanently set to alert, as if everyone is about to miss something important at all times. For passengers over 55, this isn't just annoying, it's draining. Your brain is processing gate changes, boarding groups, security instructions, and crowd movement while filtering noise that never fully stops. Every decision costs a little more energy than it used to, and the system offers no discounts for experience. Visual clutter adds to it. Signs compete with ads. Fonts change. Directions contradict each other depending on where you're standing. You're expected to scan, interpret, and react quickly, often while standing, holding bags, and being gently herded forward by the crowd. None of that supports calm thinking. Sound doesn't help. Announcements echo, cut out, or arrive late. Important information is delivered once, mid-noise, and then disappears. Miss it, and you're left piecing together clues from screens and other passengers who are just as unsure. What makes this especially exhausting is that cognitive fatigue isn't visible. You look fine, so the assumption is that you are fine. But by the time you reach the gate, you may feel mentally spent before the flight even begins. The journey didn't become harder because people got weaker. It became harder because the environment demands constant attention without offering relief. Aging brains notice that cost immediately, even when the body is still keeping up. So, what did the industry never adjust for? It never adjusted for recovery. It never adjusted for the fact that travel is not a single action. It's a chain of actions, and chains are only as strong as the rest points between links. When those rest points disappear, the chain becomes brittle. After 55, you don't need a special travel system. You need a system with a little more margin, a little more rest, and a little more predictability. But the industry has moved in the opposite direction. Tighter, louder, faster, and more self-managed. How to travel after 55 without feeling like you're falling behind. The goal isn't to tough it out. The goal is to design around reality. Choose margin on purpose. If you can, pick flights with longer connections and earlier departures so disruptions don't trap you at night. Reduce lifting demands by packing lighter or checking a bag when it makes sense for your body. Treat the airport like a sequence of stages and build micro-rest into the flow. Sit when you can, hydrate when you can, and don't wait until you're depleted to slow down. And most importantly, give yourself permission to travel at the pace that keeps you functional on arrival. The win isn't getting to the gate fastest. The win is arriving with enough energy to enjoy what you traveled for. If you want another breakdown like this, where we explain the invisible rules and the real design choices behind travel stress, watch this next Passport Pointers video that's popping up on your screen right now. Thanks for watching Passport Pointers, and I'll see you in the next video.